The grand concert hall shimmered under golden lights, filled with thunderous applause as Victor Lang, the world-renowned pianist, took his final bow. His fingers had danced across the keys with such mastery that the audience was left breathless. Backstage, a quiet figure waited, heart pounding. 14-year-old Emma, blind since birth, stood with her white cane trembling in her hand. She had listened to every note of Victor's performance, feeling the music in her bones. For her, music was more than sound, it was a world she could see with her heart. As Victor passed, Emma mustered the courage to speak. "Mr. Lang," she said softly, "I want to play like you someday." He stopped, turned, and gave her a once-over. His smile faded into a smirk. "You want to play like me," he repeated, loud enough for nearby crew and musicians to hear. "Music isn't for those who can't even see the keys." A few nearby chuckles echoed the cruelty. Emma's cheeks flushed. She lowered her head, trying to hide the sting in her eyes, though she had no tears to wipe away. Victor walked away, basking in the laughter he left behind. Emma stood alone in that corridor, her dream bruised but not broken. No one knew that her ears heard more than most eyes could see. That moment, that mockery, planted a seed not of shame, but of fire. While others laughed, a quiet determination began to grow in Emma's chest. She didn't want pity. She didn't want revenge. She only wanted one thing, to let the music speak for her when words couldn't. And deep within, she promised herself, one day, the world would listen, and remember her name. The concert hall stood quiet, its applause long faded. In the dim corner of the backstage corridor, Emma sat alone on a bench, her cane resting beside her, hands clenched in her lap. She fought back the lump in her throat, the sting of Victor Lang's words echoing in her mind. Just as the silence became too heavy to bear, she heard soft footsteps and the gentle scrape of a mop against the floor. Mr. Jenkins, the elderly janitor with kind eyes and a worn cap, noticed her sitting there. He paused, leaned his mop against the wall, and slowly walked over. "Rough night?" he asked gently. Emma nodded, unable to find words. He sat beside her without saying more, letting the quiet settle between them. Then, he spoke. "Don't listen to him," he said, his voice low but certain. "I was a jazz pianist once. Not famous, but I played with soul. Lost it all after my hands got injured in an accident. Still, I remember the music. I hear it in you." Emma turned toward the voice, her brow furrowed with curiosity. "If you want," he continued, "I can teach you. Not like they do at fancy schools, but how to feel the rhythm, trust your ears, let your hands follow your heart." That night began something magical. After hours, when the hall was empty and quiet, Mr. Jenkins would hum old jazz tunes and guide her fingers over the keys. With every note, Emma learned to listen deeper, to hear the space between sounds, to trust her sense of touch. He'd sweep with one hand and correct her posture with the other. Slowly, beautifully, Emma didn't just learn how to play, she began to understand how to speak through music. Months had passed, and winter had painted the city white. Inside the same grand concert hall, a new buzz filled the air, Young Talent Night, an annual showcase for rising stars. Among the entries was a mysterious name, E. Hart. No photo, no background, just a note, self-taught pianist. The organizers were intrigued. The guest of honor that night? None other than Victor Lang. Backstage, Emma waited quietly. Her hair was neatly braided, her fingers trembling not from fear, but anticipation. She had practiced every night, pouring her soul into each chord. No one, not even Mr. Jenkins, knew she had signed up. When the announcer called E. Hart, murmurs rippled through the crowd as Emma stepped onto the stage. Her cane tapped lightly on the polished floor. Gasps fluttered from the audience. Victor, seated front row, sat up straighter, his eyes narrowing. Recognition flickered. He leaned over to the host, whispering, "Is this a joke?" Emma sat down at the grand piano. Her cane rested beside the bench. For a moment, the hall was completely still. Then, she played. The first notes were soft, searching. But they grew, bold, rich, alive. Her fingers moved with grace, each note dripping with emotion only someone who had felt life's pain could deliver. The melody told a story of struggle, resilience, and beauty. The crowd leaned in, transfixed. No sheet music, no visual cues, just pure sound flowing from her soul to their hearts. Victor's smirk faded. His eyes widened. The man who once mocked her was now leaning forward, breath held, silenced not by shame, but by awe. Emma didn't need to see the keys. She had become the music. As Emma's fingers moved across the keys, the world seemed to stop. The soft, delicate intro gave way to a storm of emotion, each note rising like a wave and crashing into the hearts of everyone listening. The audience was frozen, not even daring to breathe too loudly. The music wasn't just beautiful, it was alive. It wept and rejoiced. It remembered pain and offered hope. Tears streamed down faces in the crowd. Strangers reached for one another's hands. Even the skeptics who had laughed at her entrance now sat utterly still, their hearts unraveling note by note. Emma wasn't performing. She was pouring out her soul. The music spoke where words never could. Victor Lang sat motionless, his once proud posture slowly melting. His eyes locked on Emma, the girl he'd dismissed, now commanding the very stage he once ruled. Something shifted in him, a crack in the mirror he'd always admired himself in. He rose, slowly, as the last chord faded into silence. The hall, stunned, followed. One by one, the audience stood to their feet in reverent silence, then erupted into thunderous applause. Victor stepped forward, his face pale, his hands trembling. Emma turned slightly toward the sound of his footsteps, her expression calm and steady. He reached her and paused, the words caught in his throat. "I was wrong," he said at last, his voice thick with emotion. "You don't need eyes to see the soul of music." Emma gave a small, knowing smile, not one of triumph, but of peace. The music had spoken. And the world had listened. The ovation was thunderous, wave after wave of applause crashing through the concert hall. People rose to their feet, cheering, weeping, stunned by the girl who had walked on stage with a cane and left them speechless with her soul. Emma remained seated for a moment, hands still resting on the keys, her head tilted slightly as if listening not to the applause, but to something deeper, the silence that followed. A silence full of respect. Full of awe. She stood slowly, turned toward the sound, and gave a quiet, graceful bow. But her smile wasn't for the claps or the praise. It was for the journey. For every hour she had spent in the shadows, every note practiced in secret, every cruel word that had once tried to break her. She had made it, not by chasing fame, but by staying true to what she loved. Off stage, in the dim wings, Mr. Jenkins stood with his cap pressed to his chest, eyes shimmering. A single tear slid down his cheek, not of sadness, but of pride. He had seen her fall, and now, he saw her rise. Victor Lang stepped aside as Emma passed, nodding with genuine reverence. No words were needed now. And as the lights dimmed and the crowd slowly faded, the narrator's voice returned, soft, reflective, full of meaning. Sometimes, the world needs to be silenced not by words, but by the courage of a heart that never stopped believing. Emma didn't just play music. She became its voice. And in doing so, she reminded the world what it means to truly see.